Good morning, everyone. Let me, there we are. This morning, I am going to be giving my presentation on pronouns and their usage. It really is just all about respect. I hear a lot of questions from folks sometimes, well, why do I have to call them them? I think it's a he and not a she. Hey, Bob. Hi, Alice. I prefer to use Robert if you don't mind. Just two folks having a conversation. Alice has a couple of choices on how she can respond here. I have a cousin we call Bob, so it's just my default. What's the big deal? You know I'm talking to you. Or she could say, no problem, Robert. I have a cousin we call Bob, so I may slip up. Please correct me if I do. We call people their preferred names all the time. My name is Jonni. I often have to correct people that it's not Joni. It doesn't really bother me if someone calls me Joni, unless it is going to be something that is consistent and going to be in a professional setting, but someone I just have met in passing and it's not a big deal. But as we could see here, the first response Alice gave isn't very respectful. So before we really dive into this material, I want you to know a few things. Experiences are not universal. What one person's experience with pronoun usage is not going to be the same as someone else's. And this goes for anything in life. Hey, Jonni, you're from LA. How many times have you been shot at? I have a friend who's been shot at 7 times. Again, I had a friend from Australia who thought that there was just people running around in the streets in California with guns everywhere. It was what they saw on TV, so it was kind of funny. So not everyone has the same experience. Don't say I have a friend who, because their experience is not going to be the same as everyone else's. Be open to learning. And it is okay to be uncomfortable. This is kind of a difficult topic sometimes to really understand. So it is okay to be uncomfortable. When in doubt, ask. Nothing wrong with asking. I ask folks all the time, how do you pronounce your name? We all do that. So what's the difference between that and just asking someone what their pronouns are if we're not sure? And finally, you're not owed an answer or an explanation. Don't ask someone, why do you use those pronouns? Some folks may just be open and tell you, but really, ultimately, it's none of your business. Just say, okay, I know what your pronouns are. Thank you for telling me. So let's do a little table topic exercise here. I don't need 1 to 2 minutes, but a few sentences will suffice. I want you to share something that happened to you this week or yesterday, or make something up. But I want you to not use any gendered pronouns. No she, her, him, they, husband, dad, father, mother, sister, nothing like that. No gendered pronouns. So I have an example here. My sibling and I talked about our parental unit's recent hearing loss. They are not responding to noises in the house like they used to. So who would like to go first? Or would anyone volunteer to go?
I can go.
All right, go for it.
I talked with my friend Jim yesterday about his experience serving as a judge for a high school student speech competition. He learned a lot from, Jim learned a lot from that experience, and I learned a lot from listening to what Jim shared. How's that? It's challenging, I have to say.
It was hard. You had him in there twice.
Oh.
But I see you thought about it and you were working on it, but it is a little bit difficult sometimes. Would anyone else like to give it a go?
I will try it.
Okay, Judy.
I can go, Rosa?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, is that Rosa? Sorry.
Yes.
There you are.
Okay. My younger sibling texted me and said, I have bought the car of my dreams yesterday. And I said, congratulations. But I wasn't sure either he had sent it to me, but I saw that text later on and saw that he had sent it to 5 other ones. And I was the only one that responded. And I said, congratulations again. And he said, thank you. I'm glad that you are happy for me. And all the other ones have not responded as of this morning. So I kind of like, wait a minute, was I supposed to respond, or was everybody asleep, or what's going on? We are happy for each other. Back to you, Jonni.
Thank you. I did find out your sibling is a he, though.
Yes, I know.
Would anyone else like to give it a go?
It's very difficult.
It is.
I suppose I can tell.
Jonni, this is Annetta. I'd like to try.
Oh,
All
go,
right.
Annetta.
Go for Annetta.
On Monday, I had my Toastmasters meeting with the Friendly Toastmasters Executive Committee. In the conversation with the Friendly Toastmasters Executive Committee, we had been talking about pronouns. And it was interesting how we use pronouns more than what we think. But just today, listening to why using pronouns is respectful, I can now take back to the Friendly Toastmasters Executive Committee why it is important to use them correctly. Form of respect. I've learned a lot, but I guess
And you broke up a little there at the end, Annetta, but great job.
but I did use them. So at the end, so maybe it was good.
Them is a gender neutral pronoun though. You cannot you don't make a reference of there is no binary with them. So that is fine. All right. So as we could see, trying to not use gendered pronouns is difficult sometimes. Gender norms begin the minute we're born. It's a boy, it's a girl. We're dressed up in respective colors, depending on what they say, skirts or pants. Gender neutral language does require us to think about, and does take a little effort to unlearn that habit. However, we do use gender neutral pronouns all the time without thinking about it. I found this wallet on the ground and I'm going to take it down to the police station so that they can find it later. But where sometimes gender neutral, where gendered language can be really insidious is when it applies to professions. It creates a man's job versus a woman's job mentality. So let's have a little thought experiment. Picture a nurse for me, everyone. First thing that pops in your head, nurse. Sometimes we might think of something like this. It's a very iconic nurse image. The little hat, the white apron, We've seen it in media and movies our whole lives. Granted, we all know nurses don't look like this anymore, but that's still sometimes the mental picture for a lot of folks. We don't think of this. What's the difference between these two images? They are all nurses, but we find that we have to say male nurses. We don't call women nurses, but we feel that we must make a distinction that it's a male nurse. Why? Do they do their job better or worse? Why the distinction? These are all just nurses. You don't say, when a maitre d' seats you at a restaurant, your server will be right with you. You don't stop and say, is it a waiter or a waitress? You don't care. There is going to be a person that is going to come and bring you your food and drinks, hopefully very pleasantly, so that you have a nice evening out. One more, police officer. Boom, what comes to mind? Maybe something like this. We see a couple of good-looking young men, their hands behind their back, sharp uniforms, ties, the little shiny hats. We don't think of this often. Again, we might say women police officers. Not only does that create a gender divide, but it also really pushes out and devalues those folks who are non-binary, who don't say that they are a man or a woman. Let me introduce you to the gender unicorn. It is a little silly, but it gets its point across very well. We see this little lavender unicorn standing here, and they have a few things going on around them. The first thing you'll notice, the little rainbow above their head. The rainbow represents gender identity. How do they feel? Female, woman, girl, male, man, boy, or other gender? One or both or none of the above. Next, we see the little green dots around its back, and that represents gender expression. Feminine, masculine, other, or androgynous. And finally, we see the little DNA strand on the lower half of its body, and that stands for the assigned sex at birth, female, male, or other intersexed individuals. Intersexed means that the genitals can be a mix of male and female, what we consider biologically as male or female looking genitals. And you could have what appears male at first glance, but internal testes. Honestly, I could give an entire 3-hour presentation just on the biology of this, so we'll skip it for now, but just know that the birth rate of intersexed individuals is the same percentage of as those who are born with naturally red hair. Naturally red hair is a more recessive gene. It is not as common as brunettes or blondes. However, you still know plenty of folks who are gingers. So think about, for each person you know who is born naturally red hair, there are just as many folks who are born intersexed. Gender expression, I mentioned that. Masculine, feminine, androgynous. You meet folks all the time who are, they say I'm a woman, but they wear maybe the jeans and the button-down shirt and the tie. They're very masculine presenting. We also see men who say I am a man, but they present more femininely. And we have seen this through pop culture our entire lives. Annie Lennox, famous for a lot of great music in the 80s and 90s. She is famous for being that tall, statuesque woman with the short buzzed hair and wearing the suit. Boy George, his gender is right there in his name. but he was very androgynous and feminine presenting throughout his career. Here we have Hedy Lamarr. Her public image included openly defying sexual norms, or not Hedy Lamarr, sorry, I just blanked on her name and I said the wrong name. But she defied sexual norms, and she was known for her androgynous film roles and her bisexuality. And then finally, David Bowie, famous for being androgynous through the 70s. Mismatched. Did the doctor say it's a boy or it's a girl when you were born? And you think, yes, I am a boy or a girl. I was born, the doctors stamped on my birth certificate, it's a girl. And I have never had any conflict with that. So if this is you, then you're pretty lucky. But were you a girl who liked sports? Or were you a boy who liked playing with dolls? Did you prefer pants and boots or skirts and sandals? What about pants and sandals and skirts and boots? So that was just something to think about. Even when you may identify with your gender, you sometimes don't always fit that role exactly 100% your entire lifetime. Let me give you a little history of they. You may see a lot of folks these days say that my pronouns are they, them, or they, she, or they, he. And when you see that split, that means they are fine with either one of those at the time they are showing those pronouns. People sometimes struggle with using they instead of he, him, or she, her. But did you know that they was actually brought into Middle English from Old Norse as thei, it's pronounced they, and it was a gender neutral singular pronoun. When it was so for hundreds and hundreds of years, they was used singularly as a pronoun. And it was used in common until around 1795, which was not that long ago compared to 1200. Some grammarians got together and went, we don't like they singular. It is now plural. You was originally used as a plural pronoun. We say all the time, you, Judy, you, Heather. We singular. We call out you to refer to a person. We sometimes still use you as a plural. You all, or you here today when we are addressing an audience. But we most often use it in the singular. It was originally just used plural. Thee and thou is what you would use as a singular pronoun. Thou must go to the desert, Heather. Now we use you in the singular. So a little bit of terminology. Cisgender, transgender. We've heard these words. Cisgender just means the gender you were assigned at birth matches your gender identity. I was born and stamped a girl. I identify as a girl. That is, I have a match there. However, I don't always present that way, but my identity and my biology match. Transgender just means that the gender assigned at birth does not match the gender identity. If anyone if you are cisgender and someone refers to you as cisgender, don't take it as an insult. It's not meant to be. It is just an identifier. But do know that transgender is an umbrella term. It encompasses a lot of different identities. We have transgender or transsexual, which refers to a person who is transitioning from their assigned sex at birth. meaning I was born female. I am transitioning physically to being a male, meaning I am presenting male. I am will be referred to in he, him pronouns, versus someone who is just any of these other ones, which are just for a few. You gender queer is someone who is feels like they could be both or neither. Non-binary is someone who does not adhere to the gender binary. So they may use a whole plethora of they, them is the most common. It's the only one I'm touching on here, but are so many. There is Jim, mix, mer. I don't want to butcher them all by trying to say them without having them in the notes. Two-spirit. You may have heard this term. This refers to those who are in the Native American community. There was North American tribes who had two-spirit people who are people that were non-binary, but their word for it was two-spirit, and they were highly revered and often in ceremony held a very special place where they could then be used in the ceremony, and they are neither male nor female and kind of encompass this spiritual space. And a few other bigender, agender, intersex, gender non-conforming. This video will be available later for those who are here in person, so feel free to come back to this to find these words. And I'll also have my slide deck. If anyone would like a copy of it, you can let me know. So why are pronouns important? 3 words right there: validation, respect, belonging. I am a Toastmaster. I come to my meetings. I have a role. I am validated as being a Toastmaster. I am respected for being there. I feel a sense of belonging because the members in my club welcome me and find that my being there enhances the club experience for everyone. Regardless of what role you are, gender, race, groups like Toastmasters, we all want validation, respect, and belonging. So when you use someone's preferred pronouns, you are saying, I validate, I see you, I respect you, and you do belong here with me. It's not a hard thing to do. There we go. So what do you do if you mess up? Apologize, correct, continue. I was talking to her. Sorry, I mean them. I was talking to them and they said they would meet us later. You don't need to make an ordeal of it. You don't need to continually to profusely apologize or beat yourself up over slip of the tongue. I have friends that still call me Jonni sometimes and go, sorry, Johnny. You don't need to make it. When you make a big deal about it, you're making it more about yourself versus just correcting yourself and carrying on. But Jonni, I just don't get it. And it's okay. You can use someone's preferred pronouns and not get it. If you don't get it, then you're kind of lucky in a way because you've never had to deal with not only the internal conflict of understanding who you are, but also the societal conflict of having to fight with everyone to be validated, respected, and to belong. You could still use their pronouns without having to get all the facts about transgender people and issues. You don't need to know every single nuance of what's going on in the world to just respect someone's preferred pronouns. You don't need to know what their body looks like under their clothes. Were they assigned at birth? Who cares? It's not your business. Just use their pronouns. You don't need to know why they use their preferred pronouns. Just respect it. And you don't have to even agree with them on everything. I have friends who I politically don't agree with. I still just call them by their name. And before I do open up the floor to questions, I do just want to mention just a couple of things. And that is, what do we do in Toastmasters? Madam Toastmaster, Mr. Toastmaster, Madam Table Topics Master, Madam Contest Chair, Mr. Contest Chair. If someone has gender neutral pronouns or prefers not to use the binary, you could just say back to you, Toastmaster, or Toastmaster Jonni, or our esteemed Toastmaster, our Toastmaster for the evening. Thank you, Contest Chair. Thank you, Table Topics Chair. We can use terms without bringing in the binary. I happen to like the way Madam Toastmaster sounds, so I use it. But call me Madam Toastmaster. I don't know why. That just makes me feel inflamed with power. However, we can practice using these terms in order to be more inclusive for all of those around us. Does anyone have any questions? And my contact info is up there. If you don't think of something now, you can always follow up with me. And those are my flags, by the way. I am she, her, but my identity and my expression is gender fluid. I don't really fit masculine, feminine. I kind of float around in that sphere. I am also bisexual and asexual. So you kind of get my whole little history with those three